Okay. Those were like secret questions then. So every question beyond this point is one that people will get.
Those are literally my only questions.
Was that? You have a million questions? Well,
Those are
fantastic.
my those are
Sure.
my only
Oh, it was
questions.
your only
Too
question.
bad. Oh, I did have a question for you. In one of the slides for chapter 8.5, the pie graph says that like our homeostatic like resting energy expenditure is from 60 to 75, but then I believe in the slide itself it said 50 to 70. So which one is
Daniela
more?
asked the same question. I'm not going to ask you specific percentages.
Oh,
So just be
okay.
aware that basal metabolic rate makes up the majority of your total daily energy expenditure. And then you should know what like the definitions are of the other components to it, like thermic effective feeding, exercise. So exercise is made out of voluntary exercise and non-exercise activity, thermogenesis or NEAT. So you should know what those things are. But I'm not going to ask you what percentage does. I just don't, I'm not a huge fan of like specific numbers unless there's a real purpose for them.
Okay, for
Yeah,
sure. Okay.
practical, trying to be.
And then for the APA citation, do I need to know the components of it, like be able to create a APA
No, not to
citation?
create it. I'm gonna have an APA citation there, and you're gonna have to tell me what's wrong with it. There could
Find
potentially be
the
nothing wrong with it, but it's worth 4 points. So if you kind of read between the lines, you can assume that there's four things wrong with it.
Oh, big brain. I figured that all on my own. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And y'all too that don't have your cameras on or your mics on, you can unmute to ask questions, or you can just ask them in the chat. The only issue with asking them in the chat is that the recording won't. I have to read it out loud. But ask questions away. I am here until 7, so I exist to serve.
Do I memorize the percentages for the poor, good, and excellent sources of percent daily vitals?
Yeah, I would say like what the range is for all three of those. So for
Okay.
less than 5%, good 10 to 19, and then great or excellent 20% and above. And then you should also know what the percent daily values are based off of. And it's that very general 2000 calorie amount. It's nothing specific to a person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mentioned this in class today, but I might as well say it while I have the recording up. But format for the exam. So, like I mentioned, no materials, so no phone or anything, and notes out. It's 100 points. You got multiple choice, true, false, matching, short answer. Yeah, you have like pretty much one of every type of question. There's 20, let's see, like 27 multiple choice. There's 10 true, false. There's one matching that has 8 different things you're matching with. Two fill in the blank. And then you have two short answer, three short answer. So two short answer where you're really just doing short answers. And then you have another one that's on factors that affect food preference. And then you have your APA citation correction. Also, remember to bring a calculator because there are 2 or 3 calculation questions.
And then the food president's one is food preference. I know there's like two different ones that have like it's a lot of factors for each of them. It's the one that you're talking to about is the ones that impact our food choices or like why we eat specific foods.
You can list from either of those. I just want you to
Okay.
be as like varied as possible. So I've had people put taste, smell, uh, texture, something like that. And I was like, that's great, but that's all That's all a personal
sensory.
preference, right? That's all someone's like senses affecting it. So you could say that, but it would only count for one
Okay.
preference. So you could do personal preference, socioeconomic status, time/convenience, right? Because those things are kind of tied together. There's a lot of different ones, religion, culture, all of those things. And there's sometimes crossover between them. So just
Hmm.
use different examples because you're going to have to write a full sentence.
Okay. So I
Hmm.
can take from both of those lists though.
Yeah, totally. As long as
Okay.
it's different things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Did you miss me in class today?
absolutely. Why did
Thanks.
you go?
I got off of work too late. I couldn't get up.
It's okay.
I had
Figured
a
still
lab
gain
after, so it
everything.
was like, ugh.
Yeah, I gotcha. Plus, you're gaining everything now, and since you weren't there, you get to ask all the questions, and then everyone else gets to piggyback off of your questions.
Yeah, the homies tried to get me to go, but I was like looking at my phone like this, like,
So everyone's literally just going to be watching you in the YouTube video.
oh no, I should leave them. Those are all my questions. I need to study them now.
That's good. To recap, what were the original questions you asked, just so they're in the video and I don't have to answer them
It
again?
was if I had it was basically I just wrote like what you answered. Be able to identify the examples of positive and negative feedback, the three reasons for the Industrial Revolution,
Yeah,
how
which
basal
were,
metabolic oh it was transportation, longer shelf life, and increased availability led to overall increase in food consumption.
yes, fantastic. Look at that.
And then the basal metabolic rate and how, not in terms of full percentages, but in correlation to each other, like ratios,
Yep.
and what the energy expenditure of a person actually is made up of exercise and thermic effect of feeding.
You should also know different things that impact basal metabolic rate.
What are those?
Body mass. Um, so technically, biological sex impacts uh, basal metabolic rate. Exercise um, positively affects it, so increases it.
Hmm,
Um, illness also increases it.
let's see.
Things there's a chart in the
Like genes go in there?
was that
Genes,
genes?
like
Yeah, I guess
genetic.
genetics. Yeah, for sure. But genes would be kind of tough because what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you about like direction. So does it increase or decrease? So genes are tricky because
Mm,
you do both. And then yeah, so some stuff that can decrease it would be like starvation, right?
no, fasting. Okay,
Everyone
thank
else
you.
should also be curious about the short answers because that's where the majority of your points are going to be coming from. So like your multiple choice are worth 2 points, your true false are worth 1 point.
Oh,
Matching is worth 1 point each, and there's 8 of those. Um, your fill in the blanks are worth a point each, but all of your short answers are 5 points apiece. So one of those is on where you already talked about the Industrial Revolution one.
mhm.
Um, there's one on red wine. So
Oh, that substance in it.
yeah, if you try to spell it, then I'm gonna give you points if you try to spell it. If you just say antioxidant, I'm not giving you full credit for that. But if you give it a good, honest college try, then I'll do it.
What was I gonna say? Did you give the quizzes back today?
I did. It's okay.
Okay.
You can look at them later.
Oh, okay, for sure. The red wine, try to spell. Are you gonna ask anything else about the podcast, like the J curve?
So
No?
technically the red wine question is about the J curve. So,
Okay.
right, like you could, is it practical to drink red wine as a healthier option for alcohol? The unique thing about red wine is the resveratrol that's in it, but can you get enough resveratrol from a normal consumption of red wine? Practically no, because you would have to drink an unhealthy amount because low doses of alcohol lead to the positive effects, but extremely high doses lead to negative effects. And so, yeah, you could probably drink enough red wine to get an effective dose of resveratrol, but then you'd be really getting towards the top end of that J curve where you're getting all of those negative health effects.
Mm-hmm. That's two. How many short answer are
So there was Industrial Revolution, resveratrol, red wine, the food preferences one,
there?
and then there's the APA citation. I don't know if you consider that a short answer, but it's worth.
No, but that one makes up a lot of points. For sure, for sure, for sure.
So
Okay. I feel great. Thank
good.
you for this.
Yeah, Nat's done all the heavy lifting, and we're not even. We've just been going for like 10 minutes. Come on, Chase, Ezekiel, and Nina. Any questions that y'all have?
Okay.
How
Try
many
not to make it.
short answers are there again?
There are 4 short answer. I guess
Gotcha.
it just
Okay.
depends on how you look at the APA citation question.
Okay.
So y'all can ask me anything about like formatting or yeah, formatting. I already mentioned that, how many questions of each kind they're going to be, how much they're all worth. Um, yeah,
So vast majority is multiple choice.
yeah, yeah. Vast
Okay.
majority is multiple choice, but where a lot of people end up getting screwed is they don't pay attention to the answers that I give during like these sessions for the short answer. And they have to
Gotcha.
lose a lot of points there just because
Okay.
those questions are worth so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your vast majority of the questions are going to be coming from your multiple.
Can you go over the Archimedes principle again?
Yeah, it's a great one. So the Archimedes principle is basically looking at how displacement of a substance can give us an idea of like the density of a particular object. And in this scenario, what we're usually looking at is body composition for humans and how it's being displaced by either water or air pressure. So like a person that has more muscle mass is going to displace a larger amount of water if we put them inside of a tank. Um, and that displacement, so the rising level of that water, we can measure that against someone who would otherwise be the same, but has like the same weight and same height and all that stuff, but is a larger fat mass. As if someone that has more fat, they're going to be more buoyant, and so they're not going to displace as much water. So basically, a person that has more fat will displace less water. A person that has more muscle mass and less fat will displace more water because of the density of those types of tissues. So the example I gave in class was like a golf ball would be like a person that has a lot of muscle mass, small object, but very dense, relatively heavy. And then a person that's carrying a lot of fat mass would be kind of like a ping pong ball. It's still the same size, relatively speaking, as the golf ball, but it's filled mostly with air or empty space, kind of like how fat mass is. So a lot of water is not displaced, kind of floats at the top. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Like I said, feel free to just type the questions in.
I also had a question about the physiologic versus hedonic hunger. Are we comparing the two, or are we just needing the definition for it?
Just know the definition between them.
Okay, sounds good.
Mhm.
Could you go over like calculations?
Sure. So I'm not gonna be able to like do like a full question right here. If y'all need examples or anything, just feel free to send me like an email and I can provide you with a question and then you can give it a shot. But basically you should know, a carb is 4 calories per gram, protein 4 calories per gram, fat is 9 calories per gram. And if I ask you, this, if I tell you someone is consuming 2,000 calories per day, and in that 2,000 calories per day, the person is eating 200 grams of carbohydrate, you should be able to tell me what percentage of that person's total calorie intake is coming from each of those individual macronutrients. And you should be able to do that backwards and forwards. And all that really is making sure that you're taking percentages of the same unit. So you can't just take 200 grams of carbohydrate and divide it into 2,000 calories. You would have to convert 200 grams of carbohydrate into calories, which would be 800 grams of or 800 calories from carbohydrate, right? Because 200 times 4, 800, and then you would divide that into 2,000, whatever that gives you. So yeah, you should be able to do that back and forth. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps.
Awesome. Yeah, and like I said, if you want like examples, just send me an email. I can just think of an example on the fly. You can give it a shot. If you struggle with it, then I'd be more than happy to kind of just guide you through it. Yeah, take your time to look through the study guide and whatnot. I'm not going to be literally just going over the study guide, but I will be here until I mean, we still have another half hour if y'all want to take advantage of that. If y'all don't have any more questions, I'm also open to just ending a little bit early, putting up what we have. But this will be the only recorded session. So there's the other one that's scheduled for Sunday. I won't be recording that one. Y'all have anything else for me? Y'all looking through stuff? I just don't want a
Yeah,
bunch
I'm
of
trying to look through stuff right now.
Yeah, you're good. Take your time. Like if all y'all's questions are answered, just feel free to like type that in the chat so that way there's not just a bunch of like empty space in the video. I really don't mind if you don't take up the entire time. There's no like requirement on that. Like I said, just if you're looking for stuff, I'm more than happy to wade through it.
Would we have to know about the kcal for alcohol or no?
Yeah, it'll probably come up at some point. 7.
Okay,
I
yeah,
can remember to remember there, but it's not too bad.
got you.
Alcohol stuff too. I talked about alcohol for this last chapter that we went over. Was it 8.5 or whatever it was? That's going to be your extra credit stuff. So some of the information there, not the red wine. The red wine is actually part of the exam, but a lot of that really detailed biochemistry type stuff that I talked about in relatively simple detail, that will be up for potential extra credit questions.
Will that be multiple choice or fill in the blank?
Because it's extra credit, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm kind of leaving extra credit up to, I'm just throwing it out there and seeing if you can get it. Good try though.
For sure.
While y'all are looking to, I should probably mention that probably starting this Wednesday, I'm going to be offering extra credit for attending Run Walk Roll Club. I won't count previous times that you've gone, so don't ask me about that. But basically you can get up to 5 points. You get 1 point per time that you go. There'll probably be someone there that'll be taking roll for me. That's how it's worked in the past. There'll be other extra credit opportunities that'll kind of come in time, but this is the first one that I'm kind of making available. So yeah, you get 1 point per time that you go. It's every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. And they do it over at the Otter Sports Center. They pretty much start within 5 minutes of hitting 7. So it usually goes until 7:30, 7:45. If you need to bounce at 7:30, that's totally fine. Just you can't kind of stroll in at 7:15, leave at 7:30, and expect to get your extra credit.
As far as the My Plate recommendation, are you looking for like cups or are you looking for just like what it actually entails as in like whole fruits and veggies and grains and stuff like that?
I'm just looking for the different components to it. We didn't even talk about cups because a lot of it's going to be dependent on like your weight and your like sex and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't ask you about that, but just like have a good idea about relatively what's in the My Plate. You should know like the different food groups that are in there. You should know that there's grains, but you're aiming for whole grains. You're not aiming for just, indiscriminate starchy white grains and stuff like that. You should know that protein's not like the big component of it. It's there, it's just not the majority of your plate. I know I just kind of like spitballed a bunch of stuff right there, but it's all stuff that we've kind of talked about. And really, if you just look at the My Plate, you get a good idea of what's incorporated in it. But I'm not going to ask you, how many cups of this do you need and how many glasses of that do you need and things like that. I'm not really big on like asking specific numbers unless they like serve a purpose.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I think I'm done as far as answers. Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. No worries. I'll see you next week. Jason, Ezekiel, you guys still looking through some of your questions?
I have one. Could you go over like feed forward versus negative and positive feedback?
Yeah, so negative feedback is basically the body responding to a stimulus to reverse it. So an example would be, if you're in the heat, you're going to sweat to bring your temperature back down to what it was before. A positive feedback loop is something that we don't see a lot in human physiology, not nearly as common as negative feedback. And that's scenarios like childbirth. And the examples are so obscure that I don't necessarily want to go into them. But basically, it's a stimulus that causes the thing to kind of ramp up even more. The relevance with feed forward, though, which is different than positive feedback, is that feed forward is you haven't actually experienced the stimulus, but you're anticipating it. So the example that I gave in class was salivation. You'll smell bacon or something really good, and then you'll experience like an anticipatory reaction. So you smell the bacon, your mouth waters, right? Or if you're about to take a sip of a cup of coffee, you're actually getting energized without even having to drink it, just because you know that like the anticipation of consuming that thing is already giving you this positive effect without you even needing to consume it. Is that, if that makes any sense?
Thank you.
Of course.
And you said for equations for like kilocalories, there's like how many of those are going to be on the exam?
I can check for you real quick. I don't think it's any more than 3, but it's
Okay.
2, and they range in like difficulty. Like if I just give you, you know, this many grams of something, tell me how many calories are in there. That's an example,
Mm-hmm.
simple one. And I might have 1 or 2 of the more, you know, quote unquote complicated math ones where you might have to shift between some of the percentages.
Okay.
I think that math is, you know, and I'm not, I know that some of that math can be like a little removed from stuff that you do on a day-to-day basis, but if you really break it down, like some of the examples,
Right.
it's not too bad for you to be able to deal with too. Like I'd be more than happy to kind of run through some of those examples with people on a person by person basis.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, of course. I would also make sure that y'all touch base with like the rapid research presentation. We didn't go over it in person in class because it was one of those online lectures during the strike week. But I would go back in and just make sure that you're familiar with some of the key terms, like the difference between a hypothesis and a theory and a law, for example, and then being able to identify the difference between like a randomized controlled trial and like an epidemiological trial, which is much more about, you know, relatively simple measures, but over thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. Whereas like a randomized controlled trial typically tends to be much smaller participant pools, but you have a much more tight level of control around them.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
Yeah.
I think that might be it for me. If I do have anything or come across anything, I'll probably send you an email.
Yeah, of course. And then not to put you on the spot there, Ezekiel, do you have any other questions?
No, I'm pretty good, Dr. Matrix.
Okay, for sure. And like I said, y'all feel free to contact me and I can answer individual questions, and that extends to anyone who's listening to this. But otherwise, we'll just end a little bit early then.
I definitely appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.